Okay, so 8.6.10, solving problems in the enhanced greenhouse effect. Example 1, calculate the total energy needed to convert 10 tons of ice at negative 40 degrees Celsius to water at 16 degrees Celsius. Okay, so you have the specific heat of ice, which is 2.1 times 10 to the third joules per kilogram per Kelvin. The latent heat of fusion of ice equals 3.34 times 10 to the fifth joules per kilogram. Specific heat capacity of water equals 4,180 joules per kilogram Kelvin. Using Q equals mc delta T of ice plus m times L subscript F plus mc delta T of water equals m times L subscript V plus c delta T of water plus L subscript F plus c delta T of ice equals 1 times 10 to the fourth kilograms times 2.1 times 10 to the third joules per kilogram Kelvin times 40 to the 0 power Kelvin plus 3.34 times 10 to the fifth joules per kilogram plus parentheses 4,180 joules per kilogram Kelvin times 16 to the 0 power Kelvin. This equals 4.84 times 10 to the ninth joules, which, when you round it, 5 times 10 to the ninth joules. Okay, so for part B, if the ice has an area of 100 meters squared, estimate the depth of the ice. Alright, so we had 10 tons equals 10,000 kilograms. If we assume that 1 kilogram of water has a volume of 1 dm to the third, then the total volume would be 10,000 dm to the third, or 1,000 meters cubed. Therefore, the depth of the ice would be 1 meter, because 100 meters squared times 1 meter equals 100 meters to the third. Okay, and then part C of example 1. Now suppose this volume of water was increased in temperature by 4 degrees Celsius. Estimate the increase in volume of water. Alright, so you get delta V, which is the change in volume, equals beta V delta 0 delta T equals 210 times 10 to the negative 6 Kelvin times 100 meters cubed times 2 Kelvin. This equals 4.2 times 10 to the negative second meters cubed, which equals 4.2 liters. Okay, so we have one more problem, and we will show you an example, but we're not going to really explain it, and you can pause the video if you'd like to read about it. Okay, so 8.6.11, this talks about possible solutions to reduce the enhanced greenhouse effect. The most bulleted points in the book that it pointed out were greater efficiency of power production, replacing the use of coal and oil with natural gas, use of combined heating and power systems, increased use of renewable energy sources and nuclear power, and then carbon dioxide capture and storage, and also use of hybrid vehicles. Okay, so one of the problems that was outlined by the book was the use of coal and oil for fuel production. They wanted to change it to natural gas because natural gas is more efficient. You can get up to 55% efficiency with natural gas, whereas the use of coal and oil can be as low as 40% efficient. The reason for this is because there's a lot of energy transfer into the cooling towers that holds the water for the process, and when all that energy transfers, you lose some of the energy output. There's also a jet engine that is used to turn the turbine for the generator, and that's a lot more efficient as well. Okay, so one of the most efficient ways is using plant waste to heat, because that promotes 80% efficiency. A number of advanced technologies are being developed, including the PFBC, which is a pressurized fluidized bed combustion. These kind of things generate electricity at a higher efficiency, which is one of the main goals that people try to achieve. Okay, so finally, one thing that a lot of countries are starting to do now is change over to hybrid vehicles, and that's very important because that lowers the amount of emissions that countries produce, because one of the big things is car combustion and how it produces emissions, and the less vehicles that produce emissions on the road, and obviously there are a lot of vehicles in every country because that's the main way of getting around, when you eliminate that much emission, you also eliminate a very serious problem to the greenhouse gases. Okay, so 8.6.12, international efforts to reduce the enhanced greenhouse effect. Alright, so a number of international efforts have emerged since the 1980s, which is when the main push for green energy started to happen. Three things that this chapter pointed out was Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the IPCC, the Kyoto Protocol, and the Asia-Pacific Partnership on Clean Development and Climate, which is the APPCDC. Alright, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is a body of like a group of people who tries to figure out the most information on green energy and how to do it, and they try to give it to the rest of the world so they can use that information to make it a greener place. In 1992, Earth Summit 1 was a giant meeting that was held in Rio de Janeiro. 150 countries were there, and they signed the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. The point is, when they met and they signed this framework, they are going to come together and they're all going to report how much emissions they use to the rest of the countries. In 1995, they met, and they met at the Conference of the Parties that was called COP1. It was another. It was even, although they all agreed on what they were trying to accomplish, they had a lot of arguments about how they were going to accomplish it and what they wanted to do to get it done. Okay, so the next big thing is the Kyoto Protocol. And the Kyoto Protocol, what it is every country is given an amount of emissions that they're allowed and a quota basically on what it is. And what you can do is if you don't use it all, you can trade or sell your leftover quota to other countries. And this way, there's like a set limit on how much emissions are being allowed, and then you can make sure that no one exceeds it because of the quota. And the only problem that arose with the Kyoto Protocol is that bigger countries like Russia and the United States and China didn't want to sign it because they said it would limit their economic growth and stability because it would limit the amount of factories that would work. They eventually went into something called the Asia-Pacific Partnership for Clean Development and Climate. It proposed that rather than imposing compulsory emission cuts, it would work in partnership to complement the Kyoto Protocol. Okay, with the Asia-Pacific Partnership for Clean Development and Climate, I mean, the main point was so that these bigger countries, for example, Australia, China, India, Japan, South Korea, and the United States, they're going to work together to create new green ideas and share the technology with each other so that even though they're not really working with the Kyoto Protocol because it would slow their economic growth is what they claim, and that the 5% target that they want to, the whole point was to, the Kyoto Protocol was to drop your emissions 5% to below of what it was in 1990. That was the original goal, and they claim that the 5% goal is unrealistic because it would slow, once again, the economic growth. So they're just deciding that they're going to try to work together and share their green information with each other so that they can do what they can, but yet still keep their economic growth.